Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's Indigo China, and today I'm going to be talking about a topic that I haven't covered very much on my channel. I'm going to be talking about women's health and talking about periods, nutrition specifically catered for women, and all of the things that come along with that. So if you're one of my subscribers who won't be into this topic, please click off now. Otherwise, let's continue the video. So the reason I want to start talking more about this is because I have an interest in it. Like, it's as plain as simple as that. All of the videos that I make on my channel, I have a genuine interest in. And I'm very interested in improving on my health and my well-being, especially as being female. I've always been on a journey of improvement, and I think YouTube is a great way to showcase that as well. So today's video is going to be about my menstrual cycle journey. Let's just call it that, because in the past I've suffered from really heavy painful periods, and I have a list of symptoms that I'll go through in a bit. And what I want to do through these videos is help other people to improve their periods as I have, and I'm still improving them. I feel like I have a long way to go, but at the same time I've also made a lot of progress and improvement over the years. So if you're someone that suffers from painful periods, aka dysmenorrhea, endometriosis, PCOS, anything of that nature, then this video is for you if you're looking for someone who has dealt with and is dealing with the same or similar thing. So I will start at the start of my journey. So when I was 13, my period started. It was okay up until I turned 15, and that's when I started to get the symptoms that I'm about to go through now. And I have my phone right here to help me out because it's a long list of symptoms, and I created this list in 2017. It says that's when it was last modified, at least, if you can see that. So it has been quite a while, but I think this is great that I have this now so that I can refer back to it. So my period symptoms from when I was 15 to 20/21 is as follows. So I had nausea, throwing up, intense shooting pain in my backside. I put in here in brackets that it was too painful to sit or lie down. I had extremely painful stomach cramps, and the technical term for that is dysmenorrhea, if you didn't know. And the painful stomach cramps would last about 5 days. And I had pain in my abdomen and pelvic region, heavy bleeding, and I had to change my pad once every hour on the first 3 days. Muscle pain in my legs and arms, joint pains in my ankles, knees and feet, extreme tiredness and exhaustion, moodiness, bloating, high temperature, forgetfulness, confusion, foggy brain, very slow thinking, feeling like I'm not myself, headache, inability to eat, no appetite. Period lasted 7 days, and in brackets I've put I don't leave the house for a whole week. So that is quite intense, because now my life is different. It's kind of like, wow, I used to stay at home for a whole week purely because of my period. The other symptoms says burning up, high temperature, everything seems louder than usual, trapped wind, constipation, diarrhea, depression, huge blood clots. Notice that skin has suddenly gotten dry. So I guess my skin was very dry during my period, I don't know. 31 days is my average cycle. Dizziness, lightheadedness, and I have a bunch of other stuff here. Let me just read it out though, because I think if you identify with any of these, then you know the shit isn't normal and we have to do something about it, right? We can't be, as women, trying to live, work, enjoy life and have our periods ruin that for us. So I always think when there is a will, there's a way, and there's no way you're gonna live your life in pain for, I don't know how long your period is, but for me it was 7 days long. These days it's much shorter, and of course I'm going to talk about that probably later on in this video or in another video. But I don't think anyone should have to put up with this, and it's not normal to have a period that lasts 7 days. Definitely not. So The rest of the symptoms, it says painkillers do not help unless I take a combination of them around the clock, which is not something I want to be doing. And then I've written, when I say combination, I mean 1 aspirin a day, 1 paracetamol every 2 hours, 2 ibuprofen every 4 hours. Hot baths and a heating pad do not work. They simply make me overheat and feel sick. Cold pads do not work as they make me shiver and do not ease the pain. And I've written, I want to shorten it, my period, to 3 or 5 days, make it lighter and less painful. I don't want any short-term fixes. I simply want a solution to my problem, whether that be treatment or a course of treatments or surgery, which will help me in the long run. And at the bottom it just says, referral to gynecologist. So I'm thinking this note right here was just a note to myself to help me out when I'm describing everything to my GP. It literally sounds like one of the notes that I would write, as that's something that I do. Like, I like to make sure I am going to say exactly what I need to say, and making notes helps me do that. So that's quite a list right there. I was really going through it. Obviously now that things are better, it's kind of hard to picture what I was going through. Like, I remember it from an intellectual point of view, but trying to feel what that was like, I feel so far removed from it. Like, trying to remember what that felt like now, it's like my periods now compared to then are worlds apart. So all of those symptoms that I described were happening when I was 15 all the way up until I was 20/21. And I say 20/21 because I can't remember off the top of my head when I started taking a contraception that made my periods much better. Now, I do not condone contraceptions at all, and I think I will save that for another video, but that is something that I used along my journey, so it's only fair and logical to share it. So the contraception that I was on is called the Evra patch, and if you don't know what that looks like, hopefully past me took a few photos knowing that future me would make a video, so I'll hopefully insert them here. So basically the Evra patch is a small patch that you stick to your body, usually on your belly, the side of your arm, or your back. Those are the areas that they suggest you put it on. And how it works is that the hormones of the contraception is absorbed through your skin into your bloodstream. That's why it's called transdermal. That's what transdermal means, if any of you guys watching didn't know that. So yeah, I was on that for about 3 years, maybe a few months over that, not sure, but I'll round it off to 3 years. So I was on the Evra patch for 3 years, and what it did for me is take away a lot of the symptoms that I mentioned. And if I just refer back to some of the symptoms, it took away the nausea, it took away the throwing up, it took away the tense shooting pain in my backside. I know that some of you will know what I'm talking about. I don't even have to explain that one, right? It took away my stomach cramps lasting for 5 days. They only last for 3 days. But of course, I was taking ibuprofen sometimes. But my point is that when I was taking ibuprofen, when I wasn't on the patch, my cramps would still be very painful. So the pain reduced a lot. The Evra patch also reduced the amount of bleeding that I was having. So I used to have very heavy periods. And once I was on the Evra patch for a consistent amount of time, I noticed that my periods were no longer heavy. I would say they were medium to light. So it was really good. I mean, I had days where my period was a bit heavier, but then it would taper off and then it would get lighter as it goes along. Whereas before, my periods would be super heavy for the first 3 days. I think that was the case. And they would go down a bit, but it wasn't that much. So my medium flow period back then would be the equivalent of someone else's heavy flow period. So that's how bad it was. I've written that I had to change my pad once every hour on the first 3 days. That is just insane, right? Wow. Like, I can't believe that's what I had to do. That's so much effort. Oh my gosh. When I was on the Evra patch, that wasn't even a thing. I would change my pad once every 4 hours. So that was standard for me. When I was on the Evra patch, I still had a bit of like muscle pain or pain in my legs, but that wasn't extreme. Like, it lasted about 1 or 2 days, and it also went away more when I was taking ibuprofen. I didn't have any joint pains that I can remember while I was taking the Evra patch. I think, in order to just sum it up, looking at this list right here, well, while I was on the Evra patch, it lessened all of these symptoms, like all of these ones right here. The fogginess, the high temperature, the forgetfulness, the inability to eat, having no appetite. Like, it reduced a lot of those, and some of them were just non-existent. Like, I found that I was able to eat while I was on my period, while on the Evra patch, and that wasn't something that I could do before being on it. So it's things like that that people think are small, but really they're a big deal, because if you're not eating, then you are on the verge of losing weight. And if losing weight isn't something that you need or something that you don't want to do, then it can be frustrating. So all of the symptoms that I used to have before being on the Evra patch either lessened or they just didn't exist at all. And this didn't happen like straight away. This happened gradually over time. Like, I would say after 1 year of being on the Evra patch, that's when things were just, they were just like, it took about a year of me being on the Evra patch for me to see solid improvement in all of those symptoms. And when I say solid, I just mean like permanent improvement, because for me, a year is quite a long time, and consistently having periods that are lighter, shorter. Did I mention shorter? So my periods were 7 days long before being on the Evra patch, and being on the Evra patch made them 5 days long. Because how it worked, for those of you that may not know this, please skip ahead if you do, but how it works is that you put the Evra patch on for 3 weeks, then you have a patch-free week. And so, of course, my periods are going to be consistent when I'm wearing the patch for 3 weeks, then I have a patch-free week, then I'll wear it for another 3 weeks, and I keep up that consistent behavior. So as long as I was doing that, my periods responded to it, and my menstrual cycle just got into a nice groove that I really liked. So I always knew that when I take off my patch on a Tuesday, I'll start my period on a Friday, and I'll finish my period on the next Tuesday. And that's exactly what my cycle was. I just told that to the whole wide world, right? But I love that consistency, and I loved being able to know that I can plan things around when I'm going to be on my period or when I'm not going to be on my period. That kind of certainty and control is really what I needed and what I really liked about being on the patch. But fast forwarding to this year, I have stopped taking the Evra patch. And the reason I stopped taking the patch is quite a long story, but just to summarize up for this video, I had an operation, and for that operation, I didn't want any medication in my system. And I'm not sure whether they said you have to stop taking all medication, including contraception. I didn't really care about that. I just knew that I wasn't going to have any medication in my system for when I'm going under the anesthetic, because I know that when you do have medication in your system, it can interfere with that. I know I'm a very sensitive person when it comes to that kind of stuff, so I just didn't want to risk it. I just thought, let me allow my body to just breathe, take a break from those synthetic hormones that are pumping through my system. And I just wanted things to run smoothly through my operation. So I stopped using the patch for 2 weeks, 1 week before surgery and 1 week after surgery. And then I noticed once I introduced the patch again, my skin broke out. It was no longer glowing. It didn't look cute. It was just kind of horrendous. And it's the worst my skin has ever been, I think, at least in my adult life, right? And I had nothing to pin that on other than me starting my contraception again. And another thing I noticed is that I had a bit more hair on my upper lip. And I am a hairy person, I accept that, okay? But it looked like it had more hair. I don't understand that. And I can't say with 100% certainty that the Evra patch caused more hair growth, because it could have easily been something else. But when I logically think about it, that's the only thing I changed and the only thing I introduced into my body during that short space of time, right? Because before I started taking the patch, during that week after I came out of the hospital after my operation, my skin was glowing and I felt really good. And It could have been a matter of me just being in a hospital environment where it's sanitary for the most part. It could have just been that as to why I had glowing skin and whatnot. But my skin in general, it's okay. I don't suffer from acne, right? I don't really get many spots in this area over here. That's usually when it's hormonal, when it's on your jawline or your chin. Don't really suffer from that. So for me to start the patch again and then start getting acne when it's not even a thing for me, I was definitely leaning towards the patch being the cause of that, as well as the extra facial hair right here. And we all have moustaches. I don't care what you want to say, unless you wax, right? You will have a moustache. If you're completely hair-free hair and you don't have a little bit of peach fuzz, then good for you, right? It depends on your genetics, but I would say the majority of people, the majority of women, do have a bit of hair on their upper lip. It's normal, and also to have some right hair. But my point is that when it starts to grow a bit thicker than normal, or when it starts to look darker or coarser, it's like a cause for concern, at least for me. So that's what I was feeling, and I was thinking, this contraception isn't it for me. Like, I was thinking it's causing me hair growth, and I was thinking, how is that possible? I was trying to do all the research I could, but at the end of it, I came to the conclusion that I don't want to be on it. Like, if it's gonna affect me in that way. But yeah, there's a few other reasons as to why I stopped taking the contraception, and I think I'll leave that for another video, because I just want to give you an overall view of my journey up until this point. Okay, so I've told you about how my period was when I was 15 to 20/21, and I've told you about my time taking the Evra patch, which was from the ages of 21 to 24, and now I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how things are right now. So I'm going to refer back to this list again. Like, this is why it's really good to have this list, because all of those symptoms that I was experiencing, okay, I can remember them in my head, but they're so long and there's so many of them that part of me is like, really? Really? That's what I was experiencing? That's intense. That's deep. So it's always good to write these things down so that you can refer back to them in the future as you're like progressing towards improving your menstrual cycle. And referring back to this list, I would say I'm in a middle ground between the symptoms that I was experiencing before I started my contraception and the symptoms that I was experiencing during my time on the contraception. So it kind of makes sense that it would work out that way, because when you stop taking contraception, it takes about 3 months for everything to leave your system. I don't know how accurate this is, but this is what I was told, so I'm just repeating it. This is what a GP told me. She said after 3 months, that's when your hormones will level out, and we can do some blood tests to see where your hormones and stuff are at. And the reason she said this is because I was concerned about the facial hair, like right here. Obviously you can't see it because honestly it's not even that bad. I've seen women who have it worse. I just have a little bit of peach fuzz, and because my hair is dark and my skin is also dark, but it's a lighter kind of darkness, if that even makes sense. But because of that, it does show up, and I'm very well aware that it shows up. But, you know, there are worse things in life. It's just one of those little niggles, okay? So yeah, my GP said that it will take about 3 months for everything to level out and for things to go back to normal. And by normal, she was referring to what my body is like when I'm not on contraception. And honestly, taking contraception for so long, it's kind of like you don't know what your body's like. So I didn't know what to expect. So I just read up online. I educated myself. I was doing research. I was watching videos of other ladies who stopped taking the contraception to see what they would say. But honestly, my experience has been nothing like what I've read about. It's been completely different. So although it was interesting getting those insights, I don't relate to what I read about, because like I said, what I'm experiencing now during my cycle is a middle ground. So it's almost as if my body is like, bitch, you put me through 3 fucking years of fake hormones. You made me think that I was preggers for 3 whole blood clot years. I am angry. So I'm in a bit of a middle ground between what my period was like before contraception and what my period was like during contraception. And my body is exhibiting some signs of that shooting pain that I was referring to, and a bit of nausea, a bit of tiredness, and a bit of fatigue. But my period is nowhere near as bad as it was before I started taking the contraception. And what I'm wanting to do now as a preemptive kind of action is to prevent my body from going back into what it was before I started taking contraception. I can't say that it will do that, but because I'm starting to see signs of how I call my old period before contraception used to be, because I'm seeing those signs, it is a bit concerning. So that's why I am taking preventative measures, and I'm not waiting until my period gets really, really bad to then be like, oh, I gotta do something about it. I'm gonna do something about it now. So that's where I'm at with my period. I would say it's okay. It still lasts 5 days. It doesn't last 7 days, thank fuck, right? Ugh, that would be horrible, especially as I'm so busy and I'm so work focused and doing a bunch of things, right? I need to have as much time as possible, and I can't be thinking, oh, I feel drained, I feel so tired, I can't do this, can't do that, because I'm focused on just chilling while I'm on my period and sleeping for the most part. So yeah, my aim for this series of videos, which will probably come by once every few months, it's just like an additional kind of thing that I'm adding to the topics that I already do, because obviously I cover minimalism, I talk about autism, I talk about veganism, and I talk about just general lifestyle stuff. I do Q&A videos. Well, this topic is going to be another one of those videos that I'm doing, and my purpose for them is to help other people. I think that's the core purpose of all of my videos, because even though they're different topics and they may not seem to relate to each other, in some way they do. And I think the common denominator with all of them is that they inspire to help people. And yeah, I hope that's something that I can do regarding women's health and nutrition. So I have a few tips, a few pieces of advice here and there, and I'm really happy to be able to share them with people. And these are things that I will try and test out myself. I will treat myself like the guinea pig so that I can get the results that I need. And if they work for me, they might just work for you. I think in the next video, I'll focus on supplements that have helped me with my period. I was going to include them in this video, but I know that it's getting a bit long. But I'll just leave this as a then and now kind of comparison video as to how my period has been for the last 20 something years of my life. But to end this video on a nice note, I want to go through what my goals are in regards to being on this journey. Like, what is it that I want to achieve, right? Because you don't set out to do something unless you want to achieve results. And obviously I want results. So my goals are to make my periods last 4 to 3 days. They currently last 5, and before I was on my contraception, they lasted 7. So I think 7 down to 5 is a great improvement. But what would be even better for me and my lifestyle is to have a period for 3 days. That is perfect in my eyes. So the main goal is to shorten the days of my periods. That's number 1. Number 2 is to make my stomach cramps less painful. Number 3 is to not even feel like I'm on my period. That one is a bit vague, but I'm sure you know what I mean. When you're on your period, you know you're on your period, you can just feel it, right? There's something different about the way you feel versus being on and off of it. At least that's what I feel. So I know that sometimes I feel a bit of nausea when I'm on my periods. Maybe not so much these days, but I do know that that's what I used to experience before I was taking the contraception. And I do know that my body seems like it wants to revert back to that. I'm not allowing that to happen, so it hasn't happened. But I think a part of that feeling is feeling a bit nauseous, just a little bit. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm sick of this. I want to feel how I feel right now when I'm on my period. Those are my 3 goals. And if you want, feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know what your 3 goals are if you're also on this journey to improving your menstrual health. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on my next one.